All right, so today we're going to cover how to use an airless sprayer as well as an air assist airless sprayer. We'll go over both air-driven and electric-driven airless units so you can understand how some of the similarities and differences between how they work, go over how to clean an airless, how to use an airless spray gun for best results, and show you how an air assist is slightly different and how you can properly use it as well. So let's go ahead and get started and we'll go from there. Alright, so before we get started using an airless, you want to make sure that all your connections are tight. So this is an important connection. You want to briefly review your airless hose, make sure there's no bulging or signs of wear on any of them. Make sure that your pickup tube, as you see here, is tightened and secure. Failure to have a tightened pickup tube, the motor will just run continuously and never build pressure well. And then on the side is the spray and prime valve. Most units will have something similar to this. The prime valve allows you to feed material through the pump section, and that's always the initial step you do when you're starting up the sprayer. You'll want to put the pickup tube in your material, this case similar to a latex, and you want to prime the pump with that material before turning it to spray, which will build pressure out to the gun, and then you can begin to spray until you have your current material coming from the gun. If you used the airless before, you're going to have material in your line and through the pump. So by priming it and allowing it to feed the material through the pump and then switching the spray, you'll reduce any waste associated with priming the pump. So we'll go ahead and get started here and show you the practicals of how to do that. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've now prepared my material according to the instructions that my material had. General note, if you're using airless and your material has a pot life, as it's referred to most of the time, of less than 45 minutes, an airless sprayer is typically not going to be your best solution, as it might not be able to sufficiently get the material sprayed before you run into it curing, which can ruin your pump if the material cures within your pump. You'll notice here, since I have a material in my line, I'm putting my dump tube in a separate container so that when I pump the material through the pump, any material left, the old material in the pump will be put into the bucket instead of contaminating my primary material I'll be using today. So we go ahead and just turn it on. If you have an air-powered airless, we'll show you that next, but you will turn it on and make sure it's set to prime and wait for the new material to start coming out of my dump tube. Alright, so we showed you the electric airless, now how to prime it out to the pump. Now we're going to show you an air-driven airless. The only difference between the two is how a motor is driven to provide pressure to the fluid section. This uses air, the other uses electric, and there are gas options as well. Once again, you want to make sure you're using a respirator that's proper for your material, safety glasses, and make sure all your lines are tight, your pickup tube, your fluid outlet, your dump valve. All those are tight. Then you can connect air up to it and show you how we get it primed. Before we do, we want to show you on this unit, and along with the many electric airless and a similar housing to what you see here, is a fluid filter that should be taken out and left in thinner or proper cleaner for your material you're spraying if you're leaving the pump to not be used for more than a day or two. If you're going to use it the next day, you can just flush the pump when you're done with solvent or cleaner, water if you're using water-based, until you get it clean, and then leave it stored overnight. So we'll go ahead, we'll put the fluid section back on and we'll get this primed so you can see the process is pretty much the same, but we'll show it to you and show you how to dial in the airless once you've had it primed to the line. Alright, so this is pressure to the pump, which we'll have to turn on to begin to pressurize the unit. Once you have pressure there, this is your dump valve, and having it closed like it is now will prime the line, but to start we want to start with that open. And as you can see, my dump tube is separate from my pickup tube. Then I'll go ahead and allow air to the unit, as you see here, and that'll begin to prime the pump like we did on the electric but just slightly different controls. So I'll increase air till I begin noticing my pump start to prime, and I'm looking for it to spew out whatever's in there and begin priming the new material. Once I'm confident new material's primed, I'll switch it to begin building pressure out to my gun. So you can see there's still some fluid air pockets that I want to make sure to get out before I begin priming out to the gun. All right, so I should be good on the air pockets. We'll go ahead and prime out to the gun. All right, so once we're done priming through the fluid section, which you always should prime the fluid section first, you can go ahead and close this valve. Opening this valve will act as the prime button did on the electric, the prime switch. This is just a valve that opens and closes rather than just a switch. Both units, though, you always prime the fluid section first, whether it's air-driven airless or electric airless or gas, then you prime out to the line. So we'll go ahead and do that by pressurizing the line and making sure my dump valve's closed down there. And begin pressuring the line. Then once we're done pressuring the line, we can go ahead and begin to spray to see what the pattern looks like. And make sure till we get material coming out that's the material we're going to spray. All right, so you'll notice we're good. We have material at the gun now and it's consistent spray. So I can go ahead now and show you what we do next. This will be done whether you're using an electric or an air-driven airless. There'll just be a difference in controls, which we'll show you. With airless, the pressure against the tip is what atomizes your material. So once you have material primed out to the gun, you'll want to see what your pattern looks like and what your breakup looks like. So you can see here, I'm getting some lines on the edge of my pattern. And that's due to too little pressure on the gun across the pattern. Now, if you're using an electric, the highest they typically go is 3,600 psi. If you're using an air-driven airless, depending on the ratio, you can get a lot higher pressure. If your material is too thick for your sprayer, you may find you need to use a smaller tip so that you can increase the pressure against the tip and get rid of the lines. You can always start by increasing the pressure on the pump, and we'll show you the two ways to do that on these pumps, and then your goal is to get the pattern to look uniform and without lines on either edge. That'll ensure that you get your best results with your spraying. Now, again, we'll first start by increasing pressure. If we can't get the lines at the edge of the pattern to go away, we'll try a smaller pattern size, which would be the first number on your tip. For this tip, so like a 5/13 would be a 10-inch pattern, and the 13 is the opening size. So we would drop to a 4/13, or we drop to a 5/11 and shrink the size. By reducing the fan or the opening size, we're going to have more pressure against the tip, and that'll help reduce issues with lines if increasing the pump pressure didn't solve the problem. So we'll go ahead and increase pump pressure in this case and see if we can get it to look right, and we'll show you how to do that on both the electric and the air-driven airless. So if you're using an electric airless, there'll be some sort of dial or control. Some of them are a touch screen, some of them will just be a manual wheel, but you can see here that as you move the wheel up, that increases pressure, and down decreases. Ultimately, what you're aiming for is the minimum amount of pressure that you can use to break your pattern up effectively without going excessive. So you slowly increase that until the pattern's appropriate. And the main reason you want to do that, if your pressure is way higher than you need it to be, it will break the paint very well, but it'll also create a lot of more overspray potentially, and that can result in a lot more waste of paint, plus just be less efficient, as a lot of your product will bounce off the surface. So that's how you would adjust the electric. It's there on this unit to the side. Other units would have a control panel up here. We'll show you the airless, the other unit now. So with an air-driven airless, you actually have a regulator that you control the exact PSI. The other unit's electric will often have a button you can push, and it'll actually show you PSI that your pump's putting out. With air, it's usually just a 0 to 100 gauge with an air-driven airless, and you'll know the pressure you're going to have at the tip based on the ratio of the pump, the air pressure coming in, and then what you set this regulator at. This pump will have 100 pounds of pressure coming in, and it's 30 to 1. So for every 10 pounds of pressure increase, I'm getting 300 pounds of fluid pressure on the outlet. So I'll go right at increase this till I feel comfortable. Ideally, I'd have a guy spraying to tell me when the lines at the edge of my pattern were gone. But we'll go ahead and put it about 50 pounds, which is about 1,500 PSI, and we'll show you what the pattern looks like at the gun. So that's a better pattern. You can see I don't have the distinct lines on the edge of my pattern, and my breakup's pretty fine. So at this point, I can actually begin spraying. With an airless gun, you actually hold it pretty far away from the surface, and you want to overlap passes about 50%. If you find your material is running too thick, you probably have too large of a tip. So the second number, the 15 thousandths, if you're using 15, you'd want to reduce to 13, or you can move faster, whichever you prefer. But that would be the main issue for runs with an airless. And you could also shrink the pattern or widen it if you like the size of tip, but you're still getting runs. You could go with a wider size. So the first number would be a 6 or a 7. And we'll go ahead and show you some spraying here so you can get a feel for what airless will look like. You want to stay perpendicular to target and move up and down in a uniform fashion. You don't want the gun arcing side to side. You want to be kind of directly up as perpendicular to the surface as you can be. We'll show you that now. So we're now going to show you the difference you would have with an air assist airless unit. And the only difference is there's an extra air line that comes with the gun and gives you atomization air. What that practically provides for you is the higher transfer efficiency that's similar to an HVLP gun. Air assist can be about 65% efficient, and it tends to give you a little bit of a finer breakup because the air is helping to atomize your material. To set the unit, we typically suggest leaving your air assist around 8 to 12 pounds. Much more than that, you'd want to increase your fluid pressure. So you can start with this set around 8 to 10 and gradually increase fluid pressure until you see the lines and the pattern disappear, and that'll be when you're at the right fluid pressure. So leave this set up first and gradually increase fluid pressure till you get the breakup you want. So at this point, compared to where I was with the pure airless, I'm at about 42 pounds of pressure on my fluid regulator, and we'll show you at the other gun, I wasn't getting very good breakup at that point, but we'll show you air assist at that pressure. So you can see my pattern's pretty defined. The edges aren't too hard of a line, so I could work with it at this lower pressure, which would save me overspray. Now, if I tried to do that with airless, we'll show you that next. So the air assist gives you that better breakup, lower pressure to spray at, which helps save waste. And then we'll go ahead and we'll turn off the assist air now so you can see what it looks like without that on at the lower pressure. And that's the primary difference between air assist and airless when it comes to setting them up. You still prime the pump, then the line, and all the steps that we've gone over so far. But you leave the atomization air set at 8 to 10 pounds on air assist, and then begin increasing fluid pressure until you get the proper result you're looking for, like we showed, without lines on the edge of your pattern and a full breakup like we saw here, as well as in the airless video. So just so you can visualize what this same pattern will look like without the assist air on. This is just pure airless at the same pressure that we just had the air assist on. So here's our pattern with just airless. as you can see, there's a distinguished line there, and that's because the assist air isn't giving us that extra low breakup, and our pattern just isn't as full. So that lower pressure wouldn't work if we were using this as a pure airless. We'd have to increase pressure, which can increase waste. But to set the pressures with this can spray just fine, we'll just have a higher fluid pressure. That's why we leave the assist air turned on at 8 to 12 pounds to start with air assist, so that we know we're setting the fluid pressure to the lowest possible setting to achieve breakup without creating excessive waste. All right, so we'll go ahead and show you how to use the gun properly. You can face the pattern either vertically or horizontally. Typically, you want to use the pattern that'll be the largest given what you're spraying to allow you to spray the most before you have to return, come back across the product. So we're going to use vertical so we get the most passes, the least passes with using the gun. So we're vertical, start next to where we're aiming. That way when you trigger, you can begin to spray, then you'll come onto the target. And we want to stay perpendicular to the surface, and then we want to move so we get the coverage that isn't excessive. So I'm about 6 to 12 inches away. And I'm staying perpendicular to surface, and you want to overlap each pass about 15 to 20%. That way you cover everything well. If you miss any areas, you can come back and touch those up afterwards. As you notice here, I missed at the top. So you want to have a little further distance away than you do with the standard spray gun for air spray gun. And if you get runs, your tip was probably too large or you didn't move fast enough. But as you can see, this product looks pretty decent. If I wanted more coverage, I could go ahead and apply a little more or wait for it to dry if that's what you wanted to do with your particular piece of work. So that's the airless. Main thing, the distance is further away than you do with an air spray gun. So an 8 to 12 inch distance, you stay perpendicular and you overlap pattern roughly 25 to 40% on each pass. And you want to adjust it so that you're getting as few passes across the product to get the job done efficiently. So once you've had the gun set up to there and you've verified the pattern, you paint your product. Now we'll show you how to properly clean the equipment after you're done, whether it's electric or air-driven airless. So as you can see, our airless has been used. It's time to clean up. It's dirty. So what we're going to do is go over how to properly clean the airless. If you're using whenever you work on cleaning it, if you have a nicer airless, you'll have a fluid filter in here. You always want to make sure if you're going to leave this in storage or not use it for a week or so, to actually clean the filter that's in there and at the base of your gun handle. To do that, you want to make sure there's no pressure on your airless unit. So we've bled off all the pressure. We actually opened the dump valve to ensure that any residual pressure is bled off, and squeezed the trigger at the gun. And now we can safely open this to get my fluid filter out. So I'll go ahead and get that open and see what the filter looks like and get it clean. You just select the right cleaner based on what you're using. Water-based, you'd use water. Solvent, you'll consult with each product to determine the right thinner for that material, or the right cleaner, I should say. We'll go ahead and remove the fluid filter and put that in cleaner, and then we can begin to flush the fluid and the fluid section out. As you can see, my fluid filter has a lot of material in it, so to let that clean till it's thoroughly clean will prevent you from plugging filters and having issues the next time you go to spray. So once I'm re-secure, what I'll do is I'm actually going to go ahead and clean off my pickup tube. Just use a rag to clean it, then we'll put it in our water, which is our cleaner, and we'll begin flushing out the tubes, the fluid section, then the air fluid hose. So I'll go ahead and get this hose clean, and then begin flush. So this is the air-driven airless, and if we were going to clean it, we'd make sure our pickup tube had been pushed in the cleaner, our dump tube's in a separate container, and then we can go ahead and power it on. If you're using the electric airless, you would do the same, except you'd use the spray prime valve instead of using the fluid pressure and valve there. Increase pressure till it starts feeding the material, water through the pump. And what we're going to look for is our fluid line, our fluid section to start looking like it has water, which is the cleaner that we're using in this case. Usually you'll see some bubbles where air's entered the fluid section from the new water washing out any residual paint that's there. In this case, my water wasn't perfectly clean. It was actually a little tinted from the material. So I go ahead and I can see that that's actually the new water. So we can then go ahead and pressurize the gun by closing off the valve. And then we'll begin spraying out the line. Now when you're doing the line, either priming it for new material or cleaning it out, you can go ahead and take this guard off. You do want to make sure your pump is not pressured. So I'll turn the pump pressure off here momentarily and remove that guard so that I can easily spray without creating an actual fan pattern. And that'll make it a little easier to spray material without creating a bunch of overspray and waste. So pump will be unpressured. I'll take this off and we'll finish cleaning out the line. So I took the tip guard off. The guard and the tip will actually go in the same cleaner as your fluid filter. If you do have a fluid filter at the base of the gun, you can take that off either before or after you flush, and you should clean that out as well. That helps to reduce any pluggage or tip blocking and next time you go to spray. And that's especially important if you're going to leave it in storage for a little bit. So we'll go ahead. You want to keep pressure low too when you are spraying out the line, especially if you're going to be leaving the tip guard off, because you don't want to have tons of bounce back when you're cleaning out the line and splattering in your face. So I only have about 10 pounds of pressure on my line. It's enough to make the fluid flow. What I'm going to do is just continue spraying this out or holding the trigger until my cleaner comes through, which in this case is water. Usually you'll notice the change in the material flowing. Water's a lot thinner than what I'm spraying, or you'll just notice by the color of the cleaner being clear. So we'll do that till this is cleared out, and then we leave our filters and tip in water and cleaner. So once your gun has been cleaned out and you're confident that all you've got clear material through your line, you can go ahead and put the fluid filter back in after it's been cleaned a while. To do that, there's a ball inside of here that you can see at the bottom that you put into the smaller hole, and the bigger hole will face up. Put that down, put the lid on. If you're using water-based and you plan to leave this to store for a while, you would go ahead and be sure to use what's called pump armor, which is available from any airless manufacturer, and that prevents your unit from rusting or freezing up over this long storage time. If it's only a week, a couple days between use, you don't necessarily have to do that. Use pump armor, but for longer storage, it's very important. And other than that, that's how you properly clean an airless paint sprayer.